We're here on CBS and CW for Valley News Live at noon following the nearly 2-hour news conference with Attorney General Drew Wrigley and others recapping their detailed investigation to last week's police shooting in Fargo.
There's a lot to unpack here, obviously. I think the biggest takeaway is what was alluded to on Wednesday, that the planned target was indeed the street fair. Drew Wrigley went into the extensive searches in the suspect's Google account that included mass shooting events, reading about past ones, and
Kill Fast was one, and then he said the very last area events
in Cass County.
And then the very last thing he searched the night before this all played out was a click on a link that the headline was "Thousands Enjoy First Day of Downtown Street Fair." That's the last web page he clicked on before this all went down.
It's chilling, and everyone wants to know the motive. And at this point, Drew Wrigley said over and over again he was motivated by hate and the desire to kill. And that's really all we know right now. Another big question is, was he working with anyone else? Did he have co-conspirators? The FBI says they're still digging into that. But at this point, they're saying no.
It's amazing. We do have a photo now. Our first look at the suspect, the shooter in this case. This is Mohamed Barakat, 37 years old. Still very little information about him other than we know he's been in the U.S. since 2012, is what they said here. Came over from Syria as a refugee. He has been a U.S. citizen since 2019. So he came over as a refugee, liked it enough here that he became a U.S. citizen 7 years later. They didn't say when he came to Fargo, but he had a couple jobs in the area. They didn't specify exactly. We've heard some rumors. We've seen some pictures that might be him, but nothing confirmed right now. But we can say that he's been in Fargo for quite some time. We learned earlier that he was at least briefly enrolled at NDSCS in Fargo, but he came over originally from Syria in 2012. He would have been in his mid-20s at the time as a refugee.
Our reporter on the scene there asked specifically, when did he come to Fargo and from what city? And that question was not answered. They also released new photos of multiple gas cans and propane tanks that were in the car at the time of the shooting. We told you earlier the Google search from the night before was about the street fair, which was going on at the time.
So they said that three of these gas containers were filled with gas, which of course would ignite if lit. And the two propane tanks, what looked like propane tanks here, were filled with something else, some type of legal explosive. I think he said tanninite, and that these have been exploded. These have been detonated by authorities, and that they made quite the show. So they could have caused a horrific amount of damage if these were ignited.
This was also brand new from the press conference here, an overhead picture of the scene. There's another picture of the scene from last Friday afternoon of the parking lot there. The car was, it just shows in relation to what was going on here. And we've learned that the time that Officer Robinson shot the gunman was 20 minutes after the fender bender. He was sitting for 15 of those minutes before firing, just watching this unfold, casing it out.
Attorney General Wrigley again reiterating today, which was already the case, that the fender bender seemed unrelated to all of this. This was not. There's been some conspiracies that maybe it was a plan. It seems that from what Wrigley believes, and they're still investigating, that this was a random fender bender on 25th Street South in Fargo around 2:45. That Barakat was driving from his apartment up 25th Street, saw it, circled it, kind of cased the scene, spent a few minutes, parked in a parking lot. Just by dumb luck, another car, one of the cars involved in the fender bender, pulled off to the side to look at the damage, pulled in next to Barakat, just again needed somewhere to pull off, no reason to suspect anything. Police officers were walking towards those cars when he opened fire with his weapon, an AR-style long rifle, semi-automatic, with this device that Wrigley referenced, a binary trigger, which he had said he never heard of before, which allowed it to essentially act as an automatic weapon. He had 60 rounds in there, got off about 40. And that Officer Robinson, the hero of this situation, was just still in the street, still kind of directing traffic, keeping an eye on a fire department vehicle that was leaving, and that's the only reason he wasn't in the initial wave, and was managed to what I thought was an amazing stat too, that Barakat turned to shoot the bystander, the girl Carly Coswick, who is still in the hospital, her hip is shattered. And because he turned, that gave Officer Robinson the opening to get a slightly better angle and take out the weapon, which could have caused much more destruction.
It's unbelievable when you think about how that played out and the minutia of it. Lying in wait is how A.G. Wrigley described what he was doing there at the time, just waiting. We have a live reporter here at the scene, just coming out from City Hall at the press conference there. We're going to turn it over to Nishay Taylor now for a live report. Nishay?
Good morning, Justin and Stacy. You know, you guys just gave a really good account of a lot of the details that were discussed here this afternoon, this morning, shall I say, at this news conference. You know, those details were very chilling. It's kind of hard to hear all of that information that, you know, came across this morning when we learned exactly what happened during this incident. I'll kind of reiterate what you just already said. You know, Attorney General Drew Wrigley said, and, you know, throughout this account, you know, it was mentioned that Officer Jake Wallin was one of the first ones hit, and, you know, that resulted in him losing his life. And then Andrew Dotis, as well as Tyler Hall's officers, those officers were hit shortly after. And, you know, casing the suspect, Mohamed Barakat, was casing the area. You know, that, like you said, it takes a lot of thought and process to even, you know, make it happen. You know, a lot of the details that came out this afternoon is really kind of hard to cope with. And honestly, it's kind of hard to say. I'm sure it was a difficult conversation to have for all of these local agencies that were here this afternoon during this press conference. But one good thing that did come out of all of this, we learned that the victims in this incident are doing much better. Chief Dave Zabolski says that Andrew Dotis, as well as Officer Tyler Hawes, were able to stand up on their own out of their bed. And it was also mentioned that Carly Coswick has now been moved out of the ICU. So this is positive news out of all of this tragedy that has happened. You know, fortunately, there's still unclear as to what the motive may have been. As you said, Stacy, it is just based on, you know, his hate and his desire to, you know, kill and cause such a major tragedy. Thankfully, it did not turn out worse than what it already has. But unfortunately, we were able to lose a officer in this incident. But, you know, like I've been saying, you know, these details are so chilling and it's very difficult to bear. Reporting live outside Fargo City Hall, Nishay Taylor, Valley News Live.
All right, thanks, Nishay. A lot of chilling comments coming from that. I think arguably the most emotional, at least for us, was when they were describing the response directly after the officers were shot and how the Fargo fire and police were literally speaking life to these officers.
Yes,
like,
so they formed
us.
a wall of blue around them, telling the officers to stay with us.
Yeah.
Don't go away. Stay with us.
Oh.
So much to think about. The
Thanks,
one
Nishay.
officer who did not make it, Officer Wallin's funeral is tomorrow. His memorial service is 10:30 a.m. in Pequot Lakes, Minnesota. Fargo police say final law enforcement honors will happen following that service.
Final military honors happening around noon. We told you because of the small size of the cemetery, the family has requested only FPD and military attend that specific funeral services. This is the escort route, though, and we're going to bring you all this video tomorrow. We'll do a special report. We'll broadcast the funeral, and we're going to show you people plan to be along this route, waving flags, supporting our police as they drive by.
And of course, they also have the celebration of life in Fargo next week, next Wednesday, 1 p.m. at Shields Arena. We're still waiting on the specific details. That should be the time when people should get another chance to give their condolences and pay their respects. We're running out of time here for Valley News Live at noon. We'll have much more coverage. We're going to do a Facebook Live here in just a few minutes to try to recap and try to put some bite-sized bites on all that happened here today in this news conference. We'll have more also throughout the day on Valley News Live's Facebook page, valleynewslive.com, and more tonight on our newscasts.
Thanks for tuning in.